everyone. Welcome back to the Generation Y Conservative Show. Again, I'm your host, Chris. Listen, before we get into this half hour, let's talk about the sponsors for this half hour. Riduzone. Now, if your resolution on New Year's, I know we're a couple months out at this point, almost going on half a year. If your resolution was to lose weight and you've been having a problem with that, you're not alone. A lot of us have indulgence problems, right? Including myself. Just thinking about nachos that I had last night that were spectacular. But listen, Riduzone is actually here to help out. Riduzone is America's first weight management supplement of OEA. What is OEA? Well, it's a natural metabolite of olive oil produced in the human body. Riduzone is a formulation of OEA to aid healthy weight loss. It is safe and FDA accepted by the Food and Drug Administration. And it says here that the body needs 12 liters of olive oil to produce as much OEA in one bottle of Riduzone. Riduzone supports healthy weight, low-calorie consumption, efficient metabolism of body fat. It's also safe. It's a non-stimulant, naturally present in the body. It's actually vegetarian, gluten-free, and non-GMO. Patented, FDA-accepted supplement. Start your weight loss journey now. All you have to do is go to riduzone.com, and when you order, you'll get a special 30% off coupon automatically applied to your 3-month supply. That's Riduzone, RIDUZONE.com. Also, this half hour is brought to you by a company that's really cool. Literally. It's Cat Coolers. So it's a cooler that's rugged and changes everything. These coolers are great. The last couple of weeks we've been talking about how people use coolers, right? They go hunting, you use a cooler. If you go to the beach, you get a cooler. And these are all great for your own personal use. But what about the people in your life? Is it just me, or does it, when it comes down to getting gifts for someone like your father who has everything, all the tools in his toolbox and everything, every little gadget that he can get, you're always looking for that perfect gift idea for someone. Now, I'm not talking about just dads. Everyone uses coolers, right? This would be a great opportunity. There's a lot of big cooler manufacturers out there that, again, have donated to causes that you don't necessarily agree with or support things like the removal of the Second Amendment, which one of the big cooler companies did do. They got behind Dick's Sporting Goods on that one. But listen, when it comes to Cat Coolers, they're rugged. They keep ice cold for up to 7 days. That's pretty awesome. More importantly to most of our audience here on Mojo, it's made in America, it's customizable, and comes in 4 different colors, which isn't necessarily true because it's white, black, yellow, and camouflage, if you consider camouflage one color. There's different codes for Cat Coolers. I'm still working and waiting on my code for it, which is named after my dog, which we'll find out once I actually get that code. But there's a bunch of different codes here for different hosts, so I'm just going to pick out a different one. This time, let's use SAM, S-A-M, as the Cat Cooler code. Your code is actually good for a 10% coupon at catcoolers.com. That's CATCOOLERS.com. So that's pretty cool. Go to Cat Coolers and see what all the buzz is about. All right, if you've been following along with the Generation Y Conservative Show for a while now, you would know that some of the most popular topics on the show are making fun of San Francisco and California as a whole for not only their immigration problem, but criticizing their homeless population issue as well as their feces problem. Disgusting stories. Drug problems as well. If you walk around San Francisco, I have someone that I currently work with who came from the area out there who told me that when you're walking around with your kids, you literally have to walk around with your hands over their eyes most of the time, no matter where you are, and guiding them around human feces. The homeless, when you're walking through any of the transportation centers, like whether it's the subway or the bus station or anything, that you're literally walking around people using drugs right out on the streets. I personally went out to Hawaii last year, and saw a minor homeless population issue out there, and was questioning some of the locals about it and asking like what was going on. There were tent cities set up on nice areas around the resorts, and one of the things that they told me is that it's been proven that California will actually pay for plane trips, one-way trips for their homeless population to fly out to Hawaii and dump them out there and make it Hawaii's problem. That cities like San Francisco will actually bus their homeless people from the city up to other cities up the coast in California, and that those cities will continue to bus people to the next one on and on and on and on. And it's just amazing that this is a liberally run state, liberal cities. I mean, this is the bastion of liberalism in the United States. It's California, right? California, New York, and New Jersey, I think, are the biggest. And then the New England states, I guess, as well as up the West Coast. Sad times is what we're living in, is what I'm trying to say. But isn't it amazing that the people that shout the loudest about taking care of others typically brush the people problems under the carpet and try to hide the issues with them. In the meantime, while they're talking about taking on the immigrant population coming into the United States and the overflow, and give us those people, we'll be sanctuary cities, we'll be sanctuary states and everything. While those people are being poured in, they have a homeless population of actual citizens within their cities that they're failing to take care of. You know, people like Nancy Pelosi in her district of San Francisco, Maxine Waters. These are the biggest hypocrites in Congress, and they're put into leadership positions where they say that they care about people, that they're doing what they can for the people, and yet our people are the ones that are suffering while immigrants come in and commit crimes in sanctuary cities and are let free and protected over our own population, to the point where there's an actual feces problem on the streets of San Francisco, which is what this article is about here. According to the Blaze here, it says San Francisco's poop problem explodes on the city's streets and sidewalks. It sounds like they're in deep doo-doo out there, right? There have been more than 118,000 reports of poop since 2011. Poop on the streets has long plagued the city of San Francisco, but the problem has exploded over the past few years as the city's homeless population has surged. By the way, there was one incident where someone had a trash bag that they were saving as, I guess, using as kind of like a portable potty, full of feces that they then threw out onto the street of San Francisco, and it busted open and actually made people sick as they were passing by on the sidewalks. That was something that we actually covered last year on the show. It says reports of human feces found on the streets and sidewalks jumped to an all-time record of 28,084 in 2018, up by more than 5 times the number of reported 7 years ago. In 2011, there were only 5,547 reports of human waste in public spaces. Now, wouldn't you know, of all the different places that could be covering this story, BuzzFeed is actually one of those. BuzzFeed's John Pakowski shared a graph of the incidents reported over the 8-year period, and you could just see it shooting up in regards to human feces incidents per year in San Francisco. During the first quarter of this year, there's already 6,676 reports of people saying that there's poop on the streets, according to Forbes magazine. Overall, at least 118,352 reports of human waste have been reported in San Francisco since 2011. You know, I'm going to go off track here real quick. I took a break from politics over the last week to try and listen to some other things that were going on. I typically, when I'm traveling, I'm driving around for hours for my job, and I try to listen to things that educate me, whether it's politics is typically what I'm listening to, or I just picked up a podcast that aired for the first time in 2017, and then the second season was in 2018. And it was Atlanta Monster, the first season, which follows the killings, abductions and killings of young teenage black boys in Atlanta, Georgia, back in the late 70s, early 80s, and them arresting someone and the investigation that went along with it. Very, very intense listen. And you sit there and you become kind of like, I felt like I'm driving along having my Dunkin' Donuts coffee as I'm driving 3 hours back and forth between Pennsylvania and Maryland for my job. I feel like I'm a detective in the car trying to piece together the puzzle and the mystery of what's going on with this. And it's a really good podcast, really well put together. The music for the first season reminds me a lot of the theme to Stranger Things, which it makes it even creepier of a podcast to listen to, but very well put together. The second season is actually, there's a reason why I'm going off on this tangent, is actually focused on San Francisco and the outlying territory beyond that, and the Zodiac Killer. I didn't know much about the Zodiac Killer. I've heard of him as a famous serial killer and everything, but I didn't know the details of it. And I'm probably about a third of the way through the season right now, and on the fourth set of murders that he committed, and very interesting. But that all centered around, I believe, the late 60s, early 70s, with the Zodiac Killer was in the San Francisco area. And the last murder I heard about on the podcast so far was actually a taxi driver. And when you think about taxi drivers, my word, you're talking about people that pick up strangers as their profession all day long. Just the sheer terror that must have been going through San Francisco taxi drivers after that incident, knowing it was a Zodiac Killer out there killing specifically a taxi driver, going out and picking up new people. You wouldn't want to pick up a male at that point in time, and what must have been going through the minds of the city, just gripped in terror by this person that's sending out these cryptic puzzles as he's committing these murders. I find it very fascinating, and it's been really interesting to listen to, but I'm interested in getting back to it. Anyway, back to San Francisco and their poop problem. We moved from serial killer problems over to poop problems within a matter of decades, obviously. Government watchdog Open the Books documented every spot of human fecal matter reported to the city services over the past 8 years. Open the Books is a non-profit organization that accepts no government funding in California. Go figure. There's all these different things. I know that there's one app that you can actually download, and it's almost like, I don't know if you guys use Waze. Waze is the popular GPS mapping for getting around cities and stuff like that, and it actually shows you where cops are sitting. So that when you ride up on them, you can slow down, and it's probably really infuriating for police officers across the country. I know personally one of my friends is a police officer, and we were on our way to see a comedian. It was actually Dane Cook at the Sands in Bethlehem. And I brought open the Waze app, and I said, I got to see where the pigs are sitting before we head out there. And he said, what are you talking about? I said, this app, Waze, it shows where you guys sit all the time. And he said, no, it doesn't. And I showed him when cops were coming up, and he goes, oh my gosh. He's a motorcycle patrol guy, and he's like, I'm going to download this app so I know when people know where I am and everything. So I just found it fascinating that he didn't know. But there's an app like Waze that shows you where poop is in San Francisco, and the heavier the poop cloud, or the darker the poop cloud is, the heavier the concentration of reported incidents of poop is in San Francisco. And it's just, it's funny, but it's not. One of my most popular videos, some of my most popular videos on YouTube right now, is centered around San Francisco and the problems that they've been having. I know the liberal mass exodus video that I did has over 10,000 views right now. The poop map video that I'm talking about right now has many views on it as well. By the way, if you're watching right now, the one thing I did forget to mention is that you can actually follow me on social media, where I post all the time about the articles that will most likely end up in the podcast and other articles that I find interesting interesting, just find me on Facebook at the Generation Y Conservative. Just search for it, hit like on the page, and follow to get notifications. So you can also find me on YouTube. More importantly, there I'm trying to hit that subscriber threshold right now where I can actually start making getting ad revenue on that as well. So that's important to me. If you're a fan of the show or of Mojo, I would encourage you to head over to the Generation Y Conservative YouTube channel so that you can subscribe there and hit the bell for notifications when we post new videos. That includes podcasts, the Relic Hunter collaboration videos with gun reviews, also movie reviews, and a couple other things that we do as well. Also, if you want to interact with me on Twitter, it's at Gen Y Conservative without the E on the end, where you can actually see me interacting with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Elizabeth Warren, making fun of their statements on there over this weekend as well. Okay, so poop is a big problem in San Francisco, but what else is going on in San Francisco? Well, the reason why there's a poop problem is because there's a homeless problem. Let's be honest with it. The other article that's here says a surge in homeless people seeking shelter at San Francisco airport raises security concerns. I was just at the San Francisco airport. When was I at San Francisco airport? Oh, last year when I went out to Hawaii. I could feel the heat. I can feel the heat of the liberals just looking at me. I don't know. Maybe it was my American flag shirt. A surge in homeless people seeking refuge inside San Francisco International Airport has raised security concerns and has officials searching for solutions to the problem. Police contacts with homeless people have tripled over the past 2 years, according to public records obtained by the San Francisco Chronicle. The Chronicle was mentioned in that podcast, by the way, on the Zodiac Killer. In February, authorities received about 40 calls per day regarding homeless at the airport compared to about 12 a day in March of 2017. 40 calls per day in regards to the homeless. That's insane. Even 12 calls in a day back in 2017 is pretty high. A former airport employee told KTVU-TV that she wouldn't walk around the airport alone during the early morning hours because she often encountered homeless individuals. The problem at the airport is an additional layer to the homeless crisis affecting the Bay Area. So here's the question: how do they actually end up at the airport? Well, the majority arrive at the terminal in the middle of the day in the middle of the night by train, according to officials. How are they getting train tickets? How are they getting on the trains? Again, sounds like the California cities are busing these people around to try and keep them out of their cities. It says a Bay Area rapid transit requires people to get off the train when it goes out of service for the night. Bottom line, this particular arrival at night is an area of focus as a disproportionate number of riders on trains are homeless. We've been working with BART or BART to examine where trains terminate for the night, and we've also requested that BART sweep trains for homeless before they arrive at SFO. Armando Sandoval, police crisis intervention team coordinator for BART, said he isn't surprised by the problem. I think it's typical of migrating homeless. It could be buses, trains, or subway trains. He told the newspaper. They spend time on the trains and forget where they are and end up at the end of the line locations. So what's being done? It says here that as far as airport officials are concerned, they might make Samtrans tokens available to them. We might, if they're eligible, transport them to a nearby homeless shelter. If BART is still running, we can give them a token to a BART train. Ultimately, we want to develop advocacy that finds the proper channels for these individuals. So we're starting to reach out to homeless advocacy in San Mateo County. We're looking to set up something with the city of San Francisco as well, according to Yakel, who is one of these officials here. So pretty interesting there. San Francisco, as I mentioned before, they have a real problem with their homeless population because no one's taking care of them. Let's talk about the overall picture of California for a second here. If all the United States split off their states and each state became a country, California would have the 12th largest economy as its own country in the world. Yet, California sits in a deficit most of the time with their economy. In comparison, when you look at a conservative state like Texas, which also has a massive economy and competes on the world stage, excuse me, you have a surplus in Texas. So where's the difference there? And where that really leads even more so is the fact that as a large economy, you would think that they would be pulling enough money to actually take care of their state. Instead, they rely on national emergency funds from the federal government to take care of their wildfires that happen, mainly because the environmentalists have prevented them from cleaning up brush, which turns a wildfire into a super wildfire. You have drought situations in California because you're not allowed to hold water in the reserves. And what's the reason for all this stuff? It's all environmentalist impact on the state, which ends up destroying. Think about the super wildfires. Not only are people losing their homes and lives in a lot of cases, but deforestation is burning down, which takes the homes of thousands, if not millions of animals, millions, if not it's definitely in the millions, hundreds of millions of animals, right, with these super fires and the animals that end up in these situations. So who are the environmentalists really protecting? My point is to go even further into the economy of California, you have to then take that and look at the problems that they're having. Environmentalism is one of the things that they're having a problem with because their policies don't exactly line up with what ends up happening there. But when it comes to their taking care of people, as I mentioned before, the immigrants into their state, you have homeless Americans in the state. You're supposed to be one of the 12th, you're supposedly the 12th largest economy in the world, and you can't even take care of setting up housing projects for the homeless on your streets to get them off the streets so that you don't have a feces problem. Think about, there's so many feces incidents in San Francisco that it's become a health problem. There was a convention last year that was set in San Francisco for the past couple decades by a major corporation. I forget which one it was. For the first time ever, they moved the convention out of San Francisco because they said you can't walk from any of the hotels to this convention center without going down streets that absolutely have an overwhelming stench of human urine and feces. Okay? You have incidents like what happened with that Katie, I forget Katie's last name. She was the girl that was walking with her father at the pier when an illegal immigrant shot off a shot and it hit her in the head or the chest or something like that, and she died, right? We have sanctuary cities that are allowing criminals back out on the streets without any documentation on where they are, who they are, where they came from, or anything, and we're harboring potential and literal criminals in these cities and causing that much more of an issue. So what it comes down to is San Francisco used to be a fantastic American city, right? The Golden Gate Bridge and everything. It used to be a city that showed up in all your TV shows, one of the most popular being Full House. It was a symbol of the greatness of American cities. But when you think of San Francisco now, the only things that are really coming to mind for people are the sanctuary state for the mass amount of illegal immigrants in this city and in the state as a whole. You have drug problems on the streets and in the subways. You have a human feces and urine problem. You have homeless issues all over the place where you're walking over people in the streets. What does San Francisco really stand for anymore? That's really what we should be asking is how do you as California or as a California citizen really promote any tourism to the city of San Francisco? And that's not just a problem with San Francisco. This is starting to overflow now into all the other surrounding cities, mainly because California's way of dealing with problems is getting rid of the problems, not treating the underlying symptoms, treating the symptoms, not the actual problem itself. if you get shot by a gun, right, and it starts to bleed, the first thing that you don't do is put a Band-Aid over it to stop the bleeding. That's not going to solve the problem, right? You have to get in there, remove the bullet, seal things up, stitch it up, then you put a Band-Aid over the wound, okay? What San Francisco and these other California cities and the state as a whole are doing is taking that gunshot wound, or multiple gunshot wounds, I would say, those gunshots, those bullets being homeless, and all the problems associated with that, with the feces and urine, the illegal immigrants, and every other problem that they're dealing with in their economy that they put themselves into a deficit, including high taxes and other liberal policies. And what they're doing is putting a bandage over it while it's just gushing blood all over the place. A bandage isn't going to stop it. You have to treat the actual problem and seal it up, then work your way out from there and actually treat all the symptoms that go along with that. So California refuses to address these problems directly and instead puts politicians like Nancy Pelosi and Maxine Waters into positions of power to actually promote their policies, their liberal policies of doing things that are failing in their own cities and states over there. Their way of dealing with the problem, when I said that they get rid of the problem, is literally by moving the problem to another city and waiting for the same problem to fill up in their city again so they can then again move those problems to another city. The worst part is that California doesn't even seem to be taking care of just moving around the problems within its own state. When you have states like Hawaii saying that they're shipping people out there to be taken care of and on a one-way ticket, California has a real issue on their hands, and it's really disgusting to see that this state, which is supposed to be the symbol of liberalism, what do you have left to say about your policies on the left anymore when places like Texas are succeeding under conservative principles while they have their pockets of liberalism in Austin and Dallas and stuff like that, or Houston? Those policies work in Texas. The policies in California don't work. So obviously, maybe California needs to start looking towards Texas for policy ideas without actually going to Texas to get those policy ideas. But listen, we're going to talk about some gun stuff when we come back, including the Relic Hunter and Generation Y conservative review of the Smith & Wesson revolver. We're going to talk about the Second Amendment rally that I'm going to be speaking at this summer, and also take a look at the last Second Amendment rally that I did with them last year as well. So stay tuned after the commercials. We'll be right back.